So welcome back to Amy class. We are already in the week 12th. So this is November 17th. So we have 3 modules here. The first module is that we are going to intro recap. We are going to recap the highlight of the last translation theories and skills. And then after we are done with the module 1, they were moving into the second translation skill, that is shadowing. So in the shadowing that we are going to, for the text, we are using the Bible proverb, the chapter 20, verses 1 through 10. Then after we are done, M2, that we are moving the final module of our class, that is the film shadowing and the translation. So for this lecture, so I've chosen the third lecture, A Secret of Success, as our text to film shadowing and the translation. So let's get started with the intro recap. So far, I'd like to remind you that what kind of translation skill, translation interpreting skill we have used throughout the past 2 classes. First of all, do you remember? It was read and recall. We have some 3-minute or 2-minute test, and then we intentionally read it, and after read it, then we put it away, then we just depend on our memory and to recall it. So what's the purpose of this practice? To increase your memory span. So it is all about the memory span. So memory span, so usually in your practice interpreting, we usually start word-to-word equivalence, the practice. Then we'll move on to the sentence-to-sentence translation. Then we'll move on to the paragraph-to-paragraph interpreting. Then you'll move on the 2 or 3 minute test. So the test can be chunked into 2 or 3 minutes of text. So that means if you are 2 students practicing together. One student, they read the text 2 or 3 minutes. Then the other students intentionally listen the text without seeing the text. Then he will take a note. Then after the reading is done, the second student he will interpret what was being said. So in this way, this is a step-by-step process so that we can increase the memory span. So read and recall is a very important part of translation skill, especially interpreting skill. Then what was the second one? Do you remember paraphrase? The paraphrase is that you are reading the original text, but you don't have to be stuck with the original text. In doing this, we're talking about the translation theory about this one. So this is one, the source test. This is a target test audience. So we're talking about, this is the process of analyze source test. And this is about the analyze and understand the source test. That is the ability to understand the message of source test. Then this is the transfer process. Then if you are moving, if you are trying to transfer the original text to the target message, this is restructure. So restructure. So in this case, you don't have to be faithful to the synthetic of source text. So you need to restructure. So in the paraphrase, the message is just to get the main idea, just the main message from the source text. Then forget about the language structures, forget about the synthetic. Then you just translate it as fluently as possible so they can be effective to the target language audiences. This is something about the paraphrase. Do you remember? And also we're talking about the scale of the text reliability is here. So it is always the translator's choice between the fidelity and the fluency and of text reliability. And in this case, the Professor Lee Yong-sung of Busan University, he said in the book, the 동번역 이야기, then he explains it is 충실성. And also the fidelity, and he refers to it as 자연성. So, as you have seen the text, you can see that in the 충실성, there are some translation strategies. So, an example strategy is literalism. So, literalism is a 축어역. That means the translator should be as faithful as to the original text. So you should respect the form of the source text. In other words, you should be faithful to the syntactic structure of the source text, the 축어역. And also, we're talking about borrowing, 차용어, borrowing. So you don't have to try to translate the champagne, bus, TV. So it is 차용어, borrowing. And also we are talking about the calque. This is 모사. 모사 is you don't have to, translator didn't have to try translate every word. Just hot potato, carrot and stick. Carrot and stick we translate it as carrot and stick. Carrot and stick and hot potato, 뜨거운 감자. This is 모사. Then how about the fluency and the text reliability? So what kind of translation strategy can you use? Do you remember? We are talking about modulation. 변조였죠? 변조. Modulation, that is a translation from the different viewpoint of view. So for example, that they will treat you with respect. That if you are faithful to the original text, we can say 그들은 당신을 존중할 것입니다. 이렇게 하는 것보다 if you use the modulation, 그들은 당신을 함부로 대하진 않을 것입니다. If you translate that way, that is that use the modulation strategy. And also we are talking about the conversion. Conversion. This is the 치환. 치환 means that you change the original syntactic and the syntactic structure of original language. 그죠? 원천어의 그 문법 구조를 목표의 문법 구조에 맞도록 변형시키는 거, 변화시키는 거, 전환시키는 게 that was conversion. And also we're talking about the adaptation, 변환. 그죠? This is a 변환입니다. So these are the example strategies. If you translator choose to go closer to the 자연성, the fluency, and of text reliability. So we have done this one, paraphrase. The main message is a paraphrase. So you can use this strategy. You should be faithful to the message or the original text. You cannot change the main message. So that's why we are talking about NIDA. NIDA translation theory should be formal. Sometimes you should establish the formal equivalence or dynamic equivalence. So the paraphrase, and also what else? What did? With the site translation. So we did a site translation. Site translation is very important. That is, I would say, that is essential practice to try to be a good interpreter. So one student asked, what's the difference between interpreting and the site translation? It's simple. Interpreting is just translating while listening. That is interpreting. 들으면서 통역하는 거. So what is the site translation? That is interpreting by reading the text. 눈으로 보면서 통역하는 거. 그게 site translation이야. 그래서 that's why the site translation, we should do a lot of site translation before we are trying to be the simultaneous interpreting. So today we are going to another essential practice to be to build up your interpreting skill. That is a shadow. shadowing. And the second one is film shadowing. Film shadowing and translation. So these are the two practices we are going to practice in this class. What is shadowing? Well, shadowing is like a shadow. So you are listening at that. While listening, you are repeating at the same time what is being said. That is a shadow. So the shadowing is we do a lot of shadowings for the interpreting classes. Why? The reason, the need for the shadowing is very clear. Why? Because you can improve your pronunciation first. Second, you can increase your speed in speaking. So as an interpreter, it's very important that you build up the speed of talking. So we must practice the speed as fast as the original speaker. That is the advantage of shadowing. So I was thinking about what is the good test. If you try to practice shadowing, then I was thinking about the proverb. The proverb is in the 자문서, in the Bible. So there are 3 reasons. I have chosen the proverb as a test to practice shadowing. The first, the content. The content of proverb is very clear. And content is very concise. And it is very correct. This is sort of called the 3C conditions for making the business writing. There are 3 conditions to make a very good business writing. It should be concise. It should be concise and correct and clear. The message should be clear, and the length should be short enough, and the information should be correct. These are the 3 conditions for making a good business writing. And coincidentally, the Proverbs is interesting to find. The Proverbs is written 2000 BC. However, the message is so clear, and so length is so short enough, and yet it's very insightful. So, as I said, when we were in the Bible trail, that we are talking about Jews. They began to be persecuted, and ironically, the persecution led to so the Jewish people, they had to be scattered throughout the world. But we have often heard that wherever Jewish people go in the foreign countries, many of them successful. So many people say why the Jewish people are so successful. There are many outstanding Jewish literature authors, there are many outstanding Jewish statesmen, and many outstanding Jewish scientists. So what is the secret of their success? And there are many reasons, and one of the reasons they say that is because of the proverb. So what is a proverb? The proverb is kind of a business manual. This is kind of a word of wisdom, and also there is something that we can learn from this proverb. So that's why that I chose the proverb. That the first reason is this content. And the second reason I chose the proverb as a test to practice shadowing is its rhyme, its sound, a musical effect. It's very musically clever, and it is beautifully rhymed, and there is a clever rhyme. And when you are reading the proverbs, so it's kind of rhythm. There is a pattern. So musical beauty is there. So this is something that I like it about the proverb. So the content and it is a musical effect, and also I like it because of its the message. Message is very insightful. We have something to learn, especially if you are a businessman. So there is some clues of the success. And also, so I chose it. So I was looking for the internet site that we can use for this practice. Then I will let you know. I already put down on the handout, there is 29TV co.kr인가? 거기 가면, so you don't have to log in. Just 1 minute, listening to the MP3 file is free. So coincidentally, 1 minute recording is just the Proverb chapter 1 to 10. So 1 to 10 is enough. That is 1 minute speech. I would say that would be the practicing the shadowing of the 1 minute speech from the proverb. So we are going to practice it. So I'm going to explain the how to practice shadowing. And the second one is film shadowing and exam translation. So I happen to read a book written by Professor Gonzalez. She is a translation professor. Then she wrote a book, The Multiple Voices in the Translation Class. I read it. Then I found that, wow, this is something very interesting. Why? Because translation class, everybody would say, wow, translation class? That would be boring. So especially Korean students, 야, 뭐 번역서 그거 문법 공부하는가? They were thinking about this is something that study the grammar of English. That is our stereotype concept about translation class. But when I read her book, that I found, wow, translation can be such a variety of way of studying. Oh, there are tens of ways. So the translation that can be used in the translation class. The one of them is filming, shadowing, and translation. So I got the idea from her book. Then I designed the process of film shadowing and translation. Then I was thinking, so which text would be suitable for practicing this film shadowing and the translation? Then idea occurred to me. That was the TED conference. What was TED? Maybe you already used this TED lectures for your study, English study. This is short for technology, entertainment, and design. So it started as a TED conference. So you might be curious, who attends a TED conference? So I would say they are the so-called successful people in the world. And in other words, they are rich enough to pay for the $4,000 to $7,000 to attend it. If you try to attend the TED conference, you should pay at least $4,000. That means you should be rich enough. You should be intellectually curious enough. So the TED conference started at a small conference, but as it continues, it has grown to be one of the most interesting and popular international forum. So people were talking about what is the secret of its growth of the TED. Maybe some reasons is the lecturers, the very, very stimulating lectures, so for example, and the first example would be the TED lecture is length. It is only 20-minute speech. So 20-minute speech is the longest possible lecture in the TED conference. You cannot talk longer than 20 minutes. So this is telling us something about observation threshold. Threshold, observation threshold. That means there you can observe the message here, but there is a time limit you can pay attention. That is maximum time span for any person to keep as attentive as possible is 20 minutes. So that's why I'm always trying to chunk our class into 20 or 30 minutes. Because no matter, so your attitude is quite good. You're relatively very better than the, anyway, very good student. I like your attitude. I really appreciate your attention. But even if how attentive you are, I can see some changes, subtle changes. If my lecture lasts longer than 30 minutes, you begin to be, that is the threshold. So anyway, so maybe that was because the TED speakers, they usually deliver all the messages within 20 minutes or 50 minutes or even 3 minutes. So this is interesting. Today's lecture, I've chosen one lecture that is Richard Saint and John. Then his lecture is only 3 minutes. 3 minute lecture. And also, the 3-minute lecture is the result of his 5 years of interviewing 500 people who have attended the TED conference. So you might be amazing. Wow, that is only a 3-minute speech, and that's the result of spending 5 years of interviewing 500 people who have attended TED. So that is interesting. So we are going to practice the film shadowing and the translation. For doing this, the shadowing, so I have write it down the process of the shadowing. The shadowing, first step of the proverb that I'm going to give some brief lecture about this word that means. I'm going to explain how the translation. So you can find the Korean version of a proverb, chapter 20 verse 1 through 10, and the English version of Proverbs chapter 20 verses 1 through 10. Then you can compare then how the English proverb was translated into Korean. Then you might think about, wow, this is the way that the Korean translators he has translated from English text into Korean. Then you might find something very different from your conception. Maybe some of you, if you have read the Bible, you have said, wow, I can understand what the Bible says. The translation must have something wrong. So then you will find something different. Wow, what? So I've heard that there are some missionary, then he is very multilingual, then he have read the Bibles in 5 or 6 languages, and then his conclusion is, he said, Korean translation of English Bible is one of the best in the world. That was almost perfect, he said, he claimed. But I couldn't understand, well, I couldn't agree. But when I read it, now almost agree with them. Anyway, we will find the reason why they say the Korean translation of English Bible could be said as one of the best. And also, we are moving into the film shadow. And also, let's get back to our talk of the TED. So, TED, how was it so? What is the secret of its success? First, it was a very smart communication tip. Every speech was chunked into 2 or 5 or 20 minutes, a short one enough. So the audience is not boring. They create. So the lecture must work very hard to create the impact on their target audience within the limited time of 10 minutes or 20 minutes. So that means the message should be very condensed and very intensive, and it should be funny, entertaining, and effective, and persuasive and insightful. So the lecture itself is very outstanding. That could be one of the reasons the TED success to grow as the international forum. But there is another even more important factor. Why the TED is globally popular? Because that was the work of translators. There are work of voluntary translators. They don't get money for their translation. This is amazing business pattern, business model for the TED. TED suggested so you can translate without being paid. The only credit is just to put your name in the subtitle. But there are almost hundreds of thousands of translators throughout the world who is working to translate the TED lectures without being paid. So I would say this is a new phenomenon that is occurring in the translation world. So if you want to be a professional translators, that could be a new reality you must face. What does it mean? There is another group of a lot of volunteer translators. They would work without receiving money. But how about professional? If you want to be professional translators, the professional translators, they must get the money. So what is the message from this one? In other words, there is a lot of people who are willing to translate just to study, even if they don't receive no money, even if they receive no money. But on the other hand, if you are pursuing the professional translators or interpreters, financial incentive is something that you cannot ignore. That is your daily bread, how to work without being paid. So what is the message? So that's why we are curious how well the amateur translators are translating the TED lecture. So today we are going to find it. Their translation is good enough, or is there anything that we can change it? Is there anything we can improve it? If there is a professional translators, they must find a way to be distinctive, to be different from the skills of amateur translators. In other words, if you are the professional translator, your capacity should be above their standard. If you are the same as the amateur, then we will not survive as a professional translator. In other words, you should be better able to translate than the amateur. So we are going to find out whether it is possible when you are studying this film shadow. So this wraps up our first module of the recap classes. So before I wrap up the module 1, I'd like to notice that I'd like you to get ready with our handout. So every student is ready. So if you are not ready, so while we are taking a break, maybe you can print it out. Okay. This wraps up. Okay, see you soon.